So we are back on the marriage talk series as we promised. So we thank Allah for giving us the opportunity to be here tonight. We are still waiting for our co-host, but I don't know whether she will be joining us soon or later. So I think before she joins, we should just get started. So, yesterday we laid the foundation for understanding some basic things when it comes to marriage. We took the initial stage of marriage, which has to do with the concept of finding the right partner and how that can lead to marriage itself, which has to do with understanding oneself, being the right person, and knowing exactly what a person wants. So, like we said earlier, today we are going to focus more on the Today we are going to focus more on the marriage itself, that is in the marriage. So after marriage, a lot of things take place in marriage that can lead to a lot of marital disagreements or marital discords, and in some cases which leads to divorce. What we are trying to do here is to see how we can increase or how we can have a better understanding of those things that take place in our marriages that maybe we don't get them. That is talking about understanding those issues. So by having a better understanding of such issues, I think we can be able to bridge that gap and create for ourselves a home where a couple or a family unit can be able to live together in peace, in harmony, in understanding, with compassion and empathy and tolerance. So, from yesterday's discussion, does anyone wants to? I can see that we have quite a number of new guests today. So, does anyone wants to? I think we should maybe what can we recall from yesterday's conversation, or what was the most important thing that resonated with you as an individual yesterday? That is from yesterday's discussion, please. If there is anything that resonated with you, or maybe you left the talk yesterday and you had something in mind that you wanted to contribute. So let's start with that before we go into the main discussion for today. So I said, if there is anything that you thought of yesterday, or maybe something that stuck with you yesterday, or some realization that you had from yesterday's discussion, and you would like to share it with us, please, you can do that before we go into the main topic of discussion tonight. Anyone? Now, those of us that were present yesterday, please. Okay. So, I think in the absence of that, so let's just get into today's topic of discussion. So, like yesterday we said, let's assume that we are finding partners to get married to. So today it's about, let's assume that now we are married. So after marriage, what's next? Yes, we talked about how finding the right partner, it's all about the aesthetics and the physical aspect, and how we don't give deep thoughts to the topic of marriage and so on and so forth. So let's assume that now, as married couples, or maybe a newly married couple just get married. So what next? After marriage, what next? That is today's first topic of discussion. So after marriage, what do we think is the next thing to do? Like we said earlier, please, the talk is an interactive conversation. It is not a one-way communication, please. So we should try to engage with the audience. So if we ask questions, please, let's interact. It's a conversation. Yeah. So after marriage, what's next? I can say that we have this imagination that after marriage, it's all about the happy ever after ideology, or the happy ever after imagination. But is that really what marriage is in reality? So after marriage, what next? What do we think happens next after marriage? Is it just going to be as smooth, as straightforward, without any challenges, without anything? We don't need to do anything. The marriage will just move smoothly. So what do we think occurs after marriage? Does anyone wants to contribute?
Yes,
No.
just like we discussed yesterday,
No.
after marriage, a lot happens. A lot.
Mm.
First and foremost, speaking as a husband, I want we the men to understand something.
No.
We need to know who a woman is.
Mm.
By knowing who a woman is, you need to understand. Sorry, I'm not insulting or degrading the women.
Mm.
Just be me. That's just the actual truth. Knowing a woman in the sense that you get to see some behaviors.
Mm.
You as a man, you see it wrongly, childish.
Can you be a bit audible, please?
Okay.
Yeah. So that we can.
You need to understand who a woman is.
Of course.
I'm not trying to be insultive or degrade the women. Please bear with me. But that's just my own understanding. As a man, you need to understand who a woman is.
Of course.
After marriage or during the marriage, you got to see some behaviors, which you as a man, you wouldn't do that.
Definitely.
Sometimes childish, sometimes abnormal, which to her is just normal. She flows like that.
Okay.
As a man, you need to have that in mind. You got to see that, and you bear it. You can correct it. At times you overlook some things.
Of course.
For peace to reign, and because marriage is not something you come in today and tomorrow you're going out.
Definitely.
If you want it to last, you need overlook some of the things.
Of course.
Of the women.
Of course.
That's the understanding of who a woman is. She might be doing it out of not knowing she's even wrong.
Of course.
Yes, she's not wrong. To
So-
her, she's not wrong, but to you, she is wrong.
So after marriage, it's all about understanding.
Understanding
Yeah.
and
Okay.
endurance,
And endurance.
tolerance.
And tolerance.
Yes.
So can we hear from the women or from the women that are here? After marriage, what do you think is the most important thing?
Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Hello, Mariam. How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah.
No.
So on my side is after marriage is we have to learn how to live together, how to be patient with each other, how to understand each other,
Okay.
and how to cope with the new environment we are in.
How to cope?
Yes, because it's something new. I mean, let's say for the couples, she's she came to a new environment, and for him also maybe he was living with his parents, so now he has to live with a wife,
Of course.
and he has to be responsible. He has to have her own responsibilities that she is supposed to handle as a wife. So they have to know to learn how
To
to live
adapt.
with each other.
To adapt to the new
Yeah,
living
to the
environment.
new
Yeah.
or living. Yes.
All right.
So
Thank you very much. So that was a very interesting contribution. It's true. Getting married and living with someone who is entirely different from you, coming from a different family, a different background, it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of learning. It takes a lot of things. So thank you very much. So quickly, I have some touching points that I would like to talk on tonight. So, like I tried to point out yesterday, we said after the euphoria, that the love and the excitement and all the insanity that love comes with, the blindness. So after marriage, everything settles down. So what next? So one of the most important things that I think holds marriage together is being intentional about everything that we do within the context of the marriage. That is, we have to be conscious and intentional about each and everything that we do in marriage. Yes, just like you said, just like he said that it's all about understanding and tolerance and endurance, and you said it's all about learning to adapt to the new environment. Yes, we have to consciously make those efforts to do those things within the context of the marriage. It's not just something that we just, okay, now we are married and that's all. It's going to be happy or happily married after, or live happily ever after, something like that. So the first thing that tends to occur after marriage is taking each other for granted. I don't know whether we can relate with this. Yes, just like I gave an example yesterday that his wife was asking him that before the marriage, he used to make the effort to do this and this and this, but after they got married, he threw away everything, and he made a point that politicians do not campaign after winning the elections. So taking each other for granted after marriage is one of the things that tends to pose a threat to such a relationship. Yes, you get married to a woman, or a woman gets married to a man thinking that he is the right person, or he was thinking that she is the right one, but after the marriage they start to take each other for granted. Yes, and I like to make a symbolism of what marriage is all about. It's about, for example, like two people coming together to plant a seedling. So for that seedling to grow, they have to make the conscious effort to water that seedling, to fertilize that seedling, to provide all the nourishment that that seedling needs for it to grow and for it to produce fruits. If that seedling is neglected, that seedling is going to dry up and die. The same thing applies to marriage. When we cease to make the conscious effort to make our marriages work, then it becomes a struggle. No matter how high we think the love that we have for that person is, and then after marriage we start to take things for granted, then it becomes a problem. Then it starts to bring about the decay or the death of that love itself. So one of the most important things that I would like to say here is that in marriage we have to think of this very, very critically. You can't take your partner for granted. Yes, it's not a joke. Marriage is not a joke. It's something that we really have to take seriously. Every decision, every action has to be what? Has to be intentional. It has to be made consciously so as to ensure the continuity of the marriage. Just like we said yesterday, marriage is not something that has an expiration date. Yes, it is something that is meant to last for a lifetime. So that is one of the problems that marriages encounter, taking each other for granted. Secondly is what? Is the lack of what? Communication. Yes, lack of communication. Lack of communication, I can't even emphasize how important it is for couples to communicate, because a gap in communication can lead to a lot of misunderstanding in marriages. I mean a lot. Because sometimes I think one might think that the other person knows what is happening. If we do not communicate effectively, then we are building the relationship based on assumptions. Yes, you cannot be able to read someone's mind. Men are not mind readers. Women are not mind readers. If you are angry as a man, make sure you are able to communicate with your wife in a way that she will understand. If something doesn't sit well with you as a woman, you should try to communicate that in the most in the right way to your husband, because sometimes the wife assumes that the husband understands that, okay, she is angry, or maybe the husband thinks that his wife will know that he is angry. Lack of communication in marriage is one of the major cracks that start to take place in marriages. Yes, any individual or any person that is married can be able to testify to that. Lack of effective communication is one of the major issues that is lacking in marriages, especially in our society today, where maybe the man is working, the woman is having a job of her own, they don't have much time for each other, and so on and so forth. Marriage, one of the things that keeps it together is what? Is effective communication. Yes, like I pointed out yesterday, that you have to make the effort to create time, sit down together and communicate effectively. Go over your marriages, maybe on a weekly basis, on a bi-weekly basis, whatever that will work for you. But having a gap or creating a gap in communication between you and your spouse is detrimental to the health of that relationship. It is detrimental. So that is another problem. Also, this communication, lack of it creates a gap. Its presence creates what? Bondness. It brings the couples closer. It strengthens the connection between them. Yes. But lack of it, it tends to what? To pull the two apart, leading to misunderstanding, leading to disagreements. Yes. We cannot be able to build what are decisions based on assumptions. No, you have to sit down with the person and communicate effectively with that person. And like we said yesterday, it's about what? Making a connection. It's not about confrontation. Yes, it's not about querying. No, try to understand the person's point of view. Like they said, you cannot be able to convince someone without understanding that person. Yes, you have to be able to put yourself in that person's shoe. You have to be able to understand that person from his own point of view before you can be able to what? To connect effectively with that person. Now, so we said being intentional with communication is very important. Being able to create an environment whereby you can be able to communicate effectively, because sometimes it's not about the communication now, it's about the environment. And at this point I can say that, okay, sometimes men do not create the space where their spouses can be able to communicate with them effectively. Yes, and yesterday someone made a point that when she tries to communicate with the husband, it tends to cause friction. Yes, which is not a good thing. Yes, a man shouldn't shy away from communication. Yes, so creating that environment is very important in a relationship or in marriage itself. You should be able to allow to let your guard down and communicate at a certain degree or at a level that you and your spouse can be able to have that intimate conversation with one another. Yes, it's very, very vital. Yes, this is not you and someone else. No, this is you and your spouse. This is you and your husband. This is you and your wife. So it's very important. Then we said, at what point do marriages start to become a problem? That is, they start to face problems. For example, we said that, okay, marriage is built on needs, and the moment that those needs are not able to be met, or maybe at a certain point the need of one of the partner in the relationship is not being able to be met, then it brings about problem. It brings about what? A lot of problems in the relationship. Like I said, for example, going back to the first point, we tend to what? To take the relationship or the marriage for granted. After marriage, everyone stops being intentional. Everyone stops making the effort to do anything. Yes, we just think that, okay, the marriage is done, so that is just it. Which is a problem. We have to be able to what? To be intentional about what we do in the marriage. So when, for example, the husband thinks that, okay, he is married to her, he doesn't have to make any effort whatsoever. Maybe, okay, before the marriage, you try to communicate with her every day, but after the marriage, you hardly see each other in a day. It's not going to work. So at that point, you have to re-evaluate your relationship with one another. Yes, in marriage, definitely there are going to be highs and lows. It can never be a smooth ride in marriages. There are going to be points that, okay, each one of you is everything is moving fine, and there are some times that things tend to get what? To get out of hand. So when we are conscious of these elements in marriages, it helps to bring a better understanding of how we can be able to tackle them. Yes, and one of them is what? We should try as much as possible to be conscious, to be intentional about our decisions. Not making the effort. For example, a woman, before marriage, she tends to she puts in the effort to make herself presentable. Yes, but after the marriage, maybe after 1 or 2 years, or maybe when a baby comes into the picture, then she just feels that it's done for her, so she's done. There's no need to look presentable or to look good, or there's no need for that. She's now a grandmother, not even a mother anymore. So that's it. So the same thing applies to us as males. We should be able to put in that effort towards the female counterpart. You can't just neglect her, or you just say that, okay, maybe she doesn't know. You should be able to pull the strings together. Yes. If you are the husband, you are like the sailor of a ship. So you won't allow that ship to sink into the ocean. Yeah, you should be able to sail it and make sure that you land it safely on the shore. So that is it. Another thing is that, let's assume that, okay, at what point do marriages start experiencing problems? A very known fact is when children start to present themselves in the picture. Maybe 1 kid, 2 kids, 3 kids. It becomes a problem. And this is where most of the family issues tend to arise. At this point in time, the woman tends to take the bulk of it, because the man, in most cases, he is allowed to get married to another woman. But this is where the bone of contention happens. The wife starts to think that, okay, this man, I have sacrificed for him, I have done this for him, I have done that for him, but he is not appreciating all this. Yes, it is true. You have taken your time to build his home, you have given him kids, you have taken care of him all this time, made a lot of sacrifices, but from his own perspective, there are certain things that are beyond those things that he needs. Like I pointed out yesterday, no one wants to feel neglected, no one wants to feel abandoned. So channeling the attention solely on the kids can be a reason for the man to seek an alternative. Yes, and yesterday our co-host pointed out that at the beginning of the marriage, it is not compulsory that a man will start thinking of polygamy. Yes, and it is true. Maybe later, down the lane in the marriage, that is when the question of polygamy starts to pop up. And then the wife starts to feel as if she is betrayed. Yes. So, and even the question of polygamy itself, is every man able to go into polygamy? Polygamy is halal, but does that make it permissible for every man, or is it going to be workable for every man? The answer is no. Not every man can be able to handle polygamy. Yes, that's just the fact, whether you like it or not. Because to some extent, if you cannot be able to manage your wife and your kids, you don't have the knowledge or the wisdom, the emotional maturity, the mental stability, yes, the emotional intelligence, how you can be able to fix your house with a single wife, then how do you expect to go and add another wife to the other one at home and making their life miserable altogether? Yes, but in some situations, polygamy becomes an option for the man. Why? Because he is being dissatisfied with what? With the attention that he's getting from what? Or from the lack of attention that he's getting from the wife that he has at home. But what about the wife? Maybe the wife also is experiencing what? that lack of attention, that lack, her needs are not being met. And when I say needs here, I'm not talking about food. I'm not talking about maybe material or money or financial. No, I'm talking about needs that has to do with emotional connection. Yes, intimacy also. Those things they are basic, they are fundamental in every marriage, marriage. In the context of marriage, it must be acknowledged, it must be dealt with the way it should be. So what happens to her when the husband seeks an alternative? She cannot be able to seek an alternative. So if the husband decides to seek an alternative, then how does the one at home deal with her own issue? That is something that also the men have to be considerate about. Like we said yesterday, marriage is all about consideration, all about compassion for the other person. Yes, we have to consider that, okay, if I am thinking of myself, then what about the other person? Yes, we should be able to, that is what we call the balancing act. Yes, if you feel neglected by your wife, then don't you feel that she is being neglected too, to some certain degree, even though, yeah, she might be the reason. But the two of you working it out together will go a long way in making the relationship healthier than just seeking an alternative. I don't know whether we understand the point I'm trying to make here, because this is a very serious issue in families. You see a family after 2 or 3 kids, a lot of issues start to crop up at this point in time. Yes, because having those kids, definitely the attention that the husband will get will be reduced to a certain degree. But how can you be able to help her out? Yes, maybe she needs a support or kind of helping hand, something like that. How can you be able to manage it, to navigate the needs of her children and your needs? How can the two of you be able to work it out together so that at least that kind of balance is attained? Yes, we shouldn't be self-centered in trying to meet our own needs.